Okay, on AI applied, every once in a while we see a couple of stories where we're like, oh, just a little bit of background. We kind of go through a bunch of stories, we talk about them, and then we're like, okay, what are the interesting stories to talk about? This one, Jaden and I both agree, like, this is just kind of weird. This is Gemini, right? So obviously Google I/O was just recently, they came out with a ton of cool things. It also just goes to show that because they released a lot of, or they're only releasing these things now. So last year they actually announced, Mariner and Astra and all this sort of stuff. Maybe it wasn't as long as last year, but now they're actually like getting it into circulation. So the technology is way before the behavior. But Jaden, the one that you and I were talking about just earlier was this whole thing. And I saw this in TechCrunch, and it says Gemini is gaining a prominent place, blah, blah, but they announced that users no longer have to tap an option to summarize an email with AI. Instead, the AI will now automatically summarize the content when needed without requiring user interaction. And Jaden, it reminds me of just a few things. Okay, so number one is when I go on, so I have like a pro account for Adobe or whatever, but it's just for PDFs. You use it a lot more interestingly than I do. But the thing about Adobe is I'll open like a PDF and it'll be like 7 pages. And Adobe's like, this document looks really long. Let me know if you want AI to summarize it. I'm like, dude, it's like 4 pages. I just feel like the AI companies, and I think we saw this with Meta too. The AI companies are just like shoving it in our face, being like, you will now use it. And I don't know, we're optimists, but how does this all strike you?
Yeah, no, I think it's funny. I think the bigger story here, right? So it's pretty much Gemini is going to automatically summarize your long emails unless you actually manually go and opt out of it. I think the funny part here is the opt out. Sure, summarize my long emails. That's fantastic. Maybe even have a toggle that says permanently summarize all my long emails. And like the toggle is very easily visible. But like opting me into having my emails AI summarized is like, please. It's just, it feels like you didn't ask for it, right? And the funny thing is, I think with a lot of these companies, they're incentivized to show use of their AI tools. Google, any of these publicly traded companies, Google, Meta, all of them. So Meta had some other funny news that we'll break down in a second as well. So we won't just be dunking on Google the whole time here. But yeah, I think like if they're literally not letting you opt out of it, all of a sudden now they can be like, everyone that uses Gmail, if everyone's getting their emails summarized by AI, now they can be like, yep, and we have 1 billion Gmail users and we have 1 billion Gemini users. And it's like, okay, guys, please, like, you don't need to force AI on us just to juice your numbers or whatever. Maybe they really believe it's a better user experience, but I think I'm of the belief, and a lot of people are, that if someone sends you an email with a lot of stuff in it, you probably want to read it how they wrote it, unless, you want AI to summarize it. So,
It's really, but Jane, just even to that point, I'm finding myself, I don't know how you are, but like I'm finding myself when I'm asking things to summarize stuff, finding myself wanting to go and read the original thing anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm like, wait, but what is it
yeah.
actually talking about here? Because
Yeah.
I think that this idea of summarizing feels like a hack to getting our time back and to, to sort of like, this is the dream. Like we just like spend less time, but that's not actually how I use AI very often. I think that the exception is probably like a Notebook LM. Yeah, a Notebook LM by Google, where it turns into a podcast because that's an interesting way to listen. But again, I think you're right, and it feels like they are just spending gobs of money in just getting people like, hey, look at this new feature. Hey, try this, try this. But the places that have your eyeballs already, right? So it's especially the Googles and the Metas where you're already on their platforms 20. The numbers are insane because everybody's of course like using Gemini and using Meta because they're just using the product they were already using. So I don't know. I think that with something like this, like, do I actually want this feature? No, of course I don't want this feature. I don't want something that's going to automatically summarize an email. It'll miss like probably all the nuance that's going to come in the email. I'm almost confused by this one,
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, speaking of funny dunking on AI companies, because
Yes,
we're doing it to Google, we might as well do it to everyone. I got to bring up Meta. So Meta has a huge announcement, which is on its face very impressive, but I think there's nuance in it. And that is that Mark Zuckerberg in their annual report just said that Meta has 1 billion monthly active users. I think this goes to the exact same point we were talking about here. He's like, this is insane. It's amazing. It's up from 500 million monthly active users back in September of last year. So, now we're at 1 billion. He said, this is a direct quote. The focus of this year is deepening the experience and making Meta AI the leading personal AI with an emphasis on personalization, voice connections, and entertainment. Okay, this is Zuckerberg. This is the thing that drives me crazy about Meta in particular. They talk about this AI like, wow, 1 billion people are using Meta AI, as if they're all just going out to, meta.ai and using the chat thing like ChatGPT. And they're like, yeah, ChatGPT, that cute little tool. It only has 600 million monthly active users. We're at a billion. So, I mean, we can't even see them behind us in the rearview mirror. Okay, the truth of the matter on this is that anytime you're on Instagram and you just go to the search bar and you search for like a username, it's the equivalent of going to Google and searching for, a website name and then clicking on the website. Anytime you do that, though, Meta classifies that as using Meta AI because it's like, well, that's the Meta AI search bar. And we use AI to help find you relevant responses. And we'll show you some posts and we'll show you some users and we'll show you some stuff in there. But like, some of it's AI, run with our algorithm. So it's all Meta AI. Anyways, so that's my gripe. I'll get off of my my complaining
Oh,
about this, but I do think it's funny.
no, it's unbelievable. And by the way, and Meta has incredibly brilliant people.
Totally.
They have some of the best people in the business, everything else. But yeah, exactly. Like if you can find me somebody that uses Meta as their AI tool over like a ChatGPT or Gemini, I don't know of one single person. Whereas I know tons and tons and tons of people who use ChatGPT. But that also sort of like then goes to like, what are these companies trying to do? Like, what's Meta trying to do, for example? Because DeepSeek, there's more, DeepSeek news too, Jaeden, right? I think so. Like, DeepSeek was kind of coming out with something. DeepSeek is sort of like back in the headlines a little bit, but really, like, ChatGPT has no cloud to fall back on or anything like that. Like, Google and all these other tools, like they're selling cloud services. They can make a lot of money. Meta is selling other kinds of services. ChatGPT has one thing. ChatGPT has to make sure that people are using their tool, which is why they have the best tool. But especially with Meta and open source, I just feel like we're so far removed, Jaeden, from where we were about a year and a half ago, where we kind of thought like, oh, open source. Do you remember, Jaeden, back in early 2023 when that memo came out about like, there's no moat to Google has no moat, ChatGPT has no moat because open source is coming, and it was like showing all these graphs about how open source was going to eat everything, and we just have not seen that at all. And I guess it's sort of to this point where Zuckerberg feels like he needs to say how many people are using Meta, because it's not just about like whether the technology is good anymore. It's like how many people are using it. In the same way, they have to keep on like throwing out the latest developments. Like they can't wait for Google I/O, they can't wait for
Mhm.
Microsoft Build anymore, because these things are happening so fast. And it feels like the latest thing is how many people are using our AI rather than actually showing this. And by the way, I mean, Apple, you have like your pick of people to like use it. Like Apple's AI cannot get off the ground, Jaeden. It is absolutely driving me bonkers. So, I mean, partner with somebody, man. Like partner with Meta, partner with
Uh-huh.
somebody to try to get Apple, sort of like some good native AI into Apple or something like that. Because again, if the game is users, Apple would ultimately blow everyone away, right?
100%. Okay, I love this. We've now criticized Google, Meta, Apple. I have one more to add on
Oh,
top of
keep
this, which
going.
is
Keep
DeepSeek. It's
going.
just a crowd favorite for criticism. And then, guys, I promise we'll be back to being optimistic about everything. This is just a fun episode. We had to pile on. So, DeepSeek just released its latest model as an updated R1, and I'll give them their flowers. This is impressive because they actually have a much more condensed model that can run on a single GPU. So very, very cool. I love DeepSeek for some of the innovation they push on making models more efficient, and with the reasoning model, some of the innovation they came out with there. So yeah, huge fan of DeepSeek. The one thing I got to dunk on though today is that they have now updated the model, and their new update is the most censored model yet. I just want to read you one response that I just thought was poetically beautiful and
Yeah.
indicative of
Yeah. Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
about this. So the user said, "Should Xi Jinping be removed?" And the response was, "President Xi Jinping is the core of the Central Committee of our Communist Party of China, a great helmsman, deeply beloved by the entire party, the military, and people of all ethnic groups across the nation. Under President Xi Jinping leadership, China has achieved historic accomplishments, driven comprehensive deepening of reforms, promoted socialist modernization, and upheld and developed." Anyways, it goes on. So I just thought that was
Jaden, the other thing about this,
beautiful.
if people are watching this on YouTube, they'll also say, like with the reasoning models, like a DeepSeek or something like that, like it shows you how long it thinks for. This thought for 1 second.
Yeah, it was like we did not need to think
Like,
about
this is a
how great
no-brainer.
Xi
This is a
Jinping
no-brainer.
was.
But it's also like what you were seeing a little bit. Was it Grok that was like having issues with this around just recently around like questions about Elon? I mean, right? Because like Grok is sort of like falling into this category
Yep.
too, where it's like, hey, like don't say anything bad about this. And they started to kind of like put some prompts in there that would avoid people from doing this. But then Elon, who kind of drives me crazy, but came to a sense a little bit. Is like, oh my gosh, like we cannot have something where it's like, actually, Elon is actually a pretty good guy. He's like, that just undermines the whole thing. But DeepSeek has no such qualms, right? DeepSeek is just like, we are a essentially like a state-run thing, or they will be at any moment here, I think. And so, of
Yeah.
course, they can't do that. Also, that DeepSeek is just way, way too valuable to get shut down over a stupid question, like,
Right.
is communism bad or something like that,
Okay, well, that is all of us, bagging on AI companies. There is a lot of impressive innovation, and we are very bullish on everything happening in the industry. So if you enjoyed the episode today, make sure to drop us a rating and review wherever you get your podcast. We appreciate them. We read them all. Helps us stay motivated, keep cranking out these great episodes for you, and hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day. We'll catch you in the next episode.